Welcome to Conversations with Toi, a blogcast tackling life one episode at a time. This is the time to air out life's craziest moments. This space is all about speaking about life's hang-ups and ways in which we can leave better than when we started. Topics are all about ways we can find space to be better in life, love, mental space, and health.
Happy Friday. I hope that you have had the most amazing week. Listen, I know I didn't have a podcast last week, but please forgive me. We'll talk about all those things. But thank you for tuning in to Conversations with Toi. I am your podcaster, Toi. I go by a lot of different titles. I am a content creator, a freelance writer, a blogger, an influencer, all the things. But the two jobs that I love the absolute most is being a wife and mother of three amazing children. Thank you for tuning in to another week of Conversations with Toi. If you cannot tell by my voice, I am super rested, super excited, super happy to be here with you and you listening in. It is a honor and a privilege that I do not take lightly. I am grateful for your presence and your tuning in, all the things. And beyond me, it's just about making sure that you have a point of contact to know that you're not in this fight of life alone. So for that, I say thank you. Welcome. If this is your first time tuning into Conversations with Toi, it is not a mistake that you are here. There is a reason for your presence to be here listening in. You may be doing 1,001 things, but you're still listening. And I love that for both of us. Thank you for tuning in. It has been an amazing, amazing week. Shout out to my youngest daughter who just celebrated her 12th birthday. She is super excited and we are excited for her. Grateful for her life, grateful for everything, all my children, but just grateful for her and her seeing another birthday because we are not guaranteed the next breath. And so because of that, we always got to give and be grateful because gratefulness is just a path to, learning how to say thank you. Like some people have lost the art of saying thank you. It irks my spirit when I see children receive things and they don't say thank you. We have been teaching our children from a young age. Even my husband, even when I would put their food and plate them, he would say thank you to your mom because so many kids think that, that's just mom's job. And in a way it is mom's job, but a thank you, just because it is my job doesn't mean that you can't say thank you. So we've been pressing that into them since they were younger, not to take advantage, not to take for granted, because I hope that as they grow older, that they learn how to say thank you in their own lives to the people that they're caring for them, people who have done some things extraordinary. Just simply saying thank you is just how you elevate. If you can't say thank you, if you can't be grateful, if you can't show appreciation, you are going to wear down the people in your lives that do the things for you. And so a thank you goes a long way. So many parents, so many people, so many entities in our lives are looking for that thank you and never receiving it. And I promise you they want it. Even as a mother, I appreciate it. I tell my husband, thank you for the little things. Just learning to be grateful and say thank you. It is super duper important. So today's podcast is an extremely interesting podcast for today. And it is one that I find extremely, extremely refreshing. As I've stated before, I am a preacher's kid or a PK. And I have grown up in and around church folk. And it's refreshing to be able to have today's guest. I'm going to get into the guest a little bit later in the show, but just know, especially if you've ever dealt with, the rhetoric around church. And what I say about the rhetoric around church, I'm talking about, sometimes the ideologies of things that we talk about, some of the things that we hold as things that we're supposed to do, our church vernacular. I can spit out to you so much quote unquote church vernacular, but just because you can say it doesn't always mean that it's in your heart. Just because you can say it doesn't mean that you live it. And therefore, I'm always very blessed when I can talk to people, preachers, pastors, that can divide the word truthfully and also entitled a little bit of common sense, because we don't know how to always apply the word of God. And I know some people are like, well, I don't believe in God. Listen, I believe all those things. And I pray that one day you'll have whatever spirituality that you aspire to. But if for those who do believe in the Christian faith, or those who want to learn more about the Christian faith, sometimes you get turned off by the things that you hear about certain pastors and preachers, and they just want money and they just want this, and they're just thieves and this and that, and they're not truthful, they're not living correctly or not living right. If you grew up in the church, if I know, it's like you're not living right, this episode is for you. It's refreshing to hear our guest and his conversation. So basically tune in. It's going to be so good. I promise you, you'll be able to at least take one or more things away from this conversation, no matter where you are in your walk. I promise you, you will. Listen, and I'm telling you that with nothing but joy in my heart. My little church heart is just jumping with joy. So today's podcast is going to be a special one. So before we get into our guests, let's just talk about a few things that's been happening on these internet streets. First of all, we have to say rest in peace to none other, and I mean absolutely none other, Reverend Jesse Jackson. He is one of the pioneers of the civil rights movement, and I, you have to say thank you to, again, this word gratefulness, this word thankful, to people who have paved the way. 84 years of life at this point in life, is no easy task. I don't know if you know, but they're saying that even at no longer is it like 50, when you reach 50, it's your half point. They're saying like 42 is the half point now, because people are dying a lot younger. And so we want to give honor to whom honor is due. We want to say thank you to Reverend Jesse Jackson and send out prayers to his entire family, friends, and associates. I know that the service of life for him is going to be absolutely amazing, astounding, and if it should very well should be, he is well deserving. We know that he has been fighting some type of illness and sickness for quite some time. And so now he can be at peace. And everybody knows that to be absent from the body is to be present with the Lord. And so we are grateful for his life, and we pray the strength of everybody that is surrounding him. Since our guest today is a bishop, I want to talk about some of the things that I've been seeing on these internet streets when it comes to things related to church-related conversations. One of the conversations that I've been seeing on churches, that on conversations on the internet, is taking some of the old school gospel music and remixing it, and how problematic that may be, because young people are hearing it and they're listening to it and they're remixing it to songs that maybe be considered more secular or quote unquote worldly. I have seen a lot of mixes that have been switching up the music and adding little worldly, I guess, beats to it. Then there are some that are taking it and flipping it and changing the words altogether. I'm not sure who's right, who's wrong, who's right. I will say that for me, whenever I hear it, it actually makes me go back to the original. That's me. I can't go for everybody else, because again, that's what they say. Like, you'll listen to something and let's say they have Hezekiah Walker and they mix it with, Throw Some D's on it, right? A song that is completely, if you know, not exactly church worthy or appropriate. For me, I can only talk about myself. It doesn't make me want to go and listen to Throw Some D's on it. It actually makes me go back and listen to Hezekiah Walker. I will say this, I've been keeping like a TikTok folder. If you know you're on TikTok, you can create a folder. And I've been creating old school music, because my mother is a choir director, right? And as a choir director's daughter, there were times where, first of all, there wasn't any time that I didn't have to learn them songs before she would bring it to the choir. So my brother, my sister, my twin, as y'all know, there's three of us, and we all sung three different parts. I'm soprano, my brother was tenor, my sister was an alto. So we would learn them songs before she brought it to the choir. There are certain songs that evoke a certain emotion for me that I also use for mental health and wellness. I even have a mental health and wellness playlist. So if you know, you know, because something about gospel music, something about God that can reach me through music that sometimes I can't hear, sometimes the preacher first. Doesn't mean that I won't hear the preacher afterwards, but I can't always hear the preacher first, because sometimes it's the music. And I know that to be true, because even in the Bible, it talked about using music to shoo away even the spirit of murder and the spirit of like suicide. Like, these things are real. That's why it's very particular. It's very careful about what you listen to, especially when you know you're not mentally well, you have something going on, you're not in the right spirit. You be very careful. Do not put on music that's going to make you be wilding out and doing the most. Go back to the old landmark, as they would say. Go back to that old school way and hear certain things that will evoke you to take a time to pray, to stop, and to get your thoughts together. But I say all that to say is that when I hear songs mixed with certain things, I'll be like, oh, that's a hot beat. Yes, because it is a hot beat. There's no way of getting around it. But beyond the quote unquote hot beat, it makes me go back to the original. For instance, the songs that I've been listening to, the people that I've been listening to, is the Anointed Pace Sisters. If you know anything about the Anointed Pace Sisters, they don't got no Throw Some D's on it. There's none of that played into it. But I've been listening to that album, certain albums. They have a lot of albums. So I've been listening to their albums, listening to certain songs. It takes me back to sitting in my mom and dad's van, right? This is when they had the big old Scooby-Doo van looking thing. It was huge. It was huge, right? And in listening to that, I remember going back to the days when I was younger. I'm talking about maybe 11, 12, possibly 13, and listening to that song, hearing it for the first time and having God fill me and crying like a crazy person as a 13-year-old because I felt the Spirit of God even in the car. I wasn't in the church. I wasn't doing any of those things. I'm sitting in there and I'm listening. It makes me go back to that. And into that, it creates a safety. And into that, I can write out in my journal the exact feelings that I'm feeling because, again, music is a segue. That's exactly why when people want to tryptophan or create a mood in the church, you can create it if you play the right chords. If you've noticed, there's a lot of churches that will play certain things because people will get up and start moving, the quote unquote shouting. They will start doing that because you can create an atmosphere. If you've never been to church, I know this is going over your head, but for those who know, you can create. That's why people have playlists for when they're doing stuff that they, grown folks do. That's why they have a playlist for this. They have a playlist for that, because it really is real. Music is a segue. So again, whenever you are having a mental health issue, you're feeling stressed, you're feeling this, you're feeling that, find a song that will cause you to be calm. And I hope that song will cause you to be calm and then go back into the presence of God to pray, to write out your journal, to do all the things, because those are the things that I do. So I don't get caught up in people saying about certain beats because, certain beats is a little diabolical. Like I said, throw some D's on it. Ain't really a song you should be playing with anything else, but it doesn't make me go backwards. It makes me go forward. That's just me, and I hope that you're hearing it and you're doing the same. A song that has been playing hard on church talk. If you don't know, you literally could type in church talk or church TikTok on TikTok and you'll see all the things. If you go on there to church TikTok, you will see them talking about things like at the meeting, and it's this old school song. It's one of them songs that my great grandparents would sing, my grandparents would sing, they still sing. Thank God for my grandparents still being here. Thank God, because I'm telling you, God has been trying. God has been healing my grandparents. I won't say he was trying. He's been healing them, and they have been having their health being tested on both sides of both them grandparents. Both grandparents, my grandparents, my grandmama, my grandfather on my dad's side, my grandmother on my mother's side. Everybody is going through it health wise, but God is still keeping it. But when I hear songs like "At the Meeting," again, it's one of those songs that's on TikTok Church. And again, it's one of those ones that just literally takes you back to the old school way. On today's podcast, we have an amazing guest today, and I want to get right into it because there's so much that I feel that we have learned, or I have learned, in this conversation. So we have Bishop Foreman, and he is considered the people's bishop. And I'm going to tell you, by the time the end of this podcast, you will see why, in my opinion, why they call him the people's bishop. But he is a pastor and shepherd that loves those he leads. Bishop Foreman is a Renaissance man who has devoted his life to changing lives. Born in Denver, Colorado, and reared in Orange Mound, an area of Memphis, Tennessee, riddled with the plight that often accompanies the inner city. From humble beginnings through God's grace, he has defied statistics and transcended supernatural boundaries. Today, he is an influential pastor, successful church planter, bishop, success coach, in-demand speaker, author, philanthropist, and entrepreneur. Bishop Foreman is the founder and chancellor of Harvest Bible College, pioneering the hashtag #FitHarvest to promote healthy living in the harvest movement. Bishop Foreman celebrated successfully shedding over 95 pounds through simple yet powerful lifestyle changes. And this is the testament to God's desire for us to walk in his shalom, where nothing is missing, nothing is lacking, nothing is broken, and all is well. Even with as beautiful as his bio is, he is literally a beautiful person. I got to listen because as a PK, somebody who's grown up in the church, I had to ask the questions. I had to ask all the questions that I feel like is necessary because, again, if you've grown up in the church for any period of time, especially in the old way, you know that there are just certain things I wanted to know. I wanted to know, why do they call you the people's bishop? I want to know what are you doing with your life? How are you inspiring people? What do you do for your mental health? These are all questions that I asked, and I got beautiful answers. We talked about the Drewski skit. We talked about everything. Listen, nothing was left unturned, but the conversation was absolutely beautiful and refreshing. Again, if you are a PK, we're a little harder on pastors and preachers. I am, because I know the standard, and a lot of times people don't live up to a standard. But I love the fact that he's talking about taking care of himself, taking time out, saying no, putting places in his schedule where people can't just, demand of his time. These are important things. And we talk about even just about how pastors aren't even reverenced the same, and the things that people expect from pastors, they're not expecting from themselves. Like, so much good conversation. My church heart is full. I keep saying that because it's the truth. I've been around some janky pastors. I've been around some janky preachers. I can read right through them. I feel like God has definitely given me that discernment. And because of that, I just enjoyed this conversation. So without any further ado, let's get into the conversation with none other than Bishop Foreman, the people's bishop. All right, Conversations with Toi family. We have an amazing treat today. We have Bishop Foreman today. I am super excited, and y'all already know. Let me just go ahead and put this out here. I am a PK, which is a preacher's kid. I don't know why I have to keep saying that, but I'm going to break it down for y'all. I have been in the presence of God, grew up in the church my entire life. So to have a bishop, a pastor, a preacher on the show today has made my little church heart so excited. So Bishop Foreman, thank you for being here today.
I love that. It's my pleasure. I love what you said, make your church heart so excited. I love that. I love it.
So I want to get with just some general information. I know you said that you are the people's bishop. What makes you the people's bishop? Why did
You know what?
coin that?
It was a term that I heard from people. So the joke is I came out of my mom's womb with a Bible and a briefcase. And so I just had this affinity towards spirituality, this affinity towards entrepreneurship, business, and those worlds always converged for me. For a lot of people, they are in conflict. I never saw it that way. They always converged for me. It's because of my spirituality that makes me successful. And so, there's several examples, but one of my favorite scriptures that talks about that, Revelation 5:10. God makes us kings and priests, spiritual and successful. And so that was it. I got into ministry through music, and eventually would begin planning a church in Denver, Colorado, which is 46 out of 50 for lowest church attendance in the nation. 4% African American, so there's not a lot of ethnic or racial diversity. So to build what we built in Denver was just absolutely amazing. And now we've relocated our headquarters here to Atlanta, Georgia, and we're going to be launching a location here. I say all that to say, for me, there's some people who grow up and that's what they want to do their whole life. They want to be a pastor. For those unfamiliar, a bishop is just a pastor to pastors. Every coach needs a coach. Every leader needs a leader. Every general needs a general. That was not my thing. I wanted to go a whole nother route, do a whole nother plan, had a whole nother plan. Matter of fact, dating back to when I was 16 years old, I was on UPN. For those who remember UPN, I think what was one of the shows that used to come on UPN? Malcolm Jamal Warner and I can't think of the name, but
I can't think of the name. I think it was Malcolm and Eddie, possibly.
Malcolm and Eddie. Yep, that's what it was. Yep. Malcolm and Eddie, all those shows. So I was on, they did a special spotlight in Denver of teenagers, and I was on the show, and I talked about how I wanted to be the first Black president. Of course, then President Obama beat me to that. I wanted to go on the law, the politics, and a whole lot of other things. Long story short, this was part of God's assignment for my life. And people started saying, you're the people's bishop, because I made it approachable. I saw church so many times as it was, you got preachers over here and you got people over here, and there's this great gulf fixed in between the two. And there is this belief that the preacher is not a human being, that like doesn't deal with human issues or human struggles or human challenges. And so, but my whole objective is to go after what's called unchurched, de-churched people who had never been in church, people who were in church and for whatever reason have fallen away. I know what it is to go through some stuff that makes you want to say, God, if this is how your people are, deuces.
Right.
But learning how to separate him from his people, just like you go to hospital, you got to separate the physicians from the people who need the physicians. And so at the end of the day, it was all about making it approachable and then operating from a place of love with people, and not being judgmental and beating people down. And so to me, that was just essential to it. And so they started saying the people's bishop. And then the pandemic hit, and I used to be suited and booted all the time. You didn't catch me out of a suit because I just preferred to dress that way. I've been dressing that way since I was a kid. But then the pandemic came, super casual. And what blew my mind was a number of people who said, Bishop, I started listening to you. I started watching you. I watch your videos because you're so approachable, and you had a tank top on. I'm like, that's what connected with you. You had a Batman shirt on. That's what connected. You had a jogging suit on, and what have you. And so that whole moniker, the people's bishop, just boils down to I love the people that I lead, and I believe that part of my responsibility is to make what can be complex to some, make it approachable, make it easy to receive, easy to digest, and for those who are a bit more familiar with some of the spiritual terminology, background, etc., make sure they can eat meat, but then make sure those who need milk can get that too.
I love that because I grew up my pastor was a bishop as well.
Mhm.
And again, the sense of approachability was
Right.
not anything that we had. I mean, he was, sociable and stuff like that. But if you took it from how I grew up to how you're approaching it, two different vast approaches and very, very different. And that's actually refreshing for me to hear.
Yeah, yeah. And it was important to me because even sitting in church, I would sometimes sit and listen, and I was like, yeah, I don't know what you're talking about. And I was like, 'cause I don't know what he's talking about. And not like my knowledge was the ceiling of it. Just phrases that I would hear. And then I was just like, what does that mean? Like, here's you gotta have a prayer life. I was like, well, what does
What
that
does that
mean?
mean?
I
Right.
pray, but like, do I have a prayer life? Ooh, and so all these things, and there's this saying, I believe it's a Chinese proverb that says, they muddy the water so it seems deep. And the reality is I was like, this is just too muddy. Make this stuff simple. A, B, C, D, E, one, two, three. Give people practical things to do to ultimately get results in their life. And that's what it's about with me. I want people to get results. My motive is number one, to please God. Number two, is to make sure that people that are connected to me can get results in their life. If the gospel is good news, the good news should be that the bad news is wrong. And so, to me, that's the approach. I'm a well-educated man, but I don't lead from the perspective of let me make you see how deep I am, and let me convince you of how many large words that I can use in expostulating the sacred writ. Like, I don't need to do all that. Like, let's just make this stuff very simple and easy so that people can actually do it and get results from it. Versus what happens for a lot of people is it becomes so frustrating. So what happens is most people, after they get, the statistics say, most people after they give their lives to the Lord, become a Christian, within 2 years they fall away. And I believe a lot of that is simply because they're sitting there and they're rocking their head, they go, and that's good, but they have no clue what's happening.
You said a few things that that my ear picked up on, and I want to talk about. Have you gotten pushback from other pastors, other bishops, other clergy that would say your approach? When I was growing up, that would be considered too worldly. If you never heard that term, trust me, but if you grew up in a church, you would hear that term all the time, that this is so and so was acting
Right.
too worldly. Have you ever gotten that pushback from anybody?
Oh, absolutely. And you know what I learned from that is they're not my audience. So I wasn't talking to you. So I had to learn you're always going to get criticism when you're doing something different. And I've done some, like we did a series one year called zoology, and or something to that effect. So I brought in live animals for the series to teach, because animals represent spirits in the Bible. So the way a spirit moves, it was anthropomorphized through an animal. So this spirit moves like this. The spirit moves like this. So I wanted to teach the principle. And so I brought in live animals and we set up the entire campus. It was like you came into a jungle. I was like, it's an experience. I want people to experience this so that they learn and leave, not just having gotten a bunch of information, but it made an impartation on their lives. And I remember, it don't take all of that. Okay, well, that's fine. They don't come. I'm not talking to you.
Yeah.
If you don't like it, don't watch.
Right.
Even preaching freedom to people, there's so much bondage that people have put themselves in. But the Bible says this. It does not say that. Well, God says this. He did not say that. Like somebody said that somebody said that to somebody who said that, but the Bible never says that. And so even in doing that, I had to learn a long time ago that more people would prefer bondage because it feels familiar. More people would prefer to be in a fear of God, not a reverential fear, but a fear like, I'm scared, I don't know. More people would prefer that. More people prefer the slave version of Christianity than the empowering version, which is biblical Christianity, because they're so familiar with that. So to your question, have I gotten pushback? Absolutely. Do I care? No, because they're not my audience. They're not who I'm talking to. And I realized at the end of the day, most people don't like themselves. So why would I have an issue with them not liking me?
Great answer. I love that.
It's the truth.
Because
It's the
again, no,
truth.
I grew up in a church. I grew up around that. So it was,
Right.
if this looked a certain way, if this
Mhm.
sounded a certain way, if you
Yep.
went and did anything that was be considered too extra, too
Yep.
anything, then it was
Yep.
considered worldly. So I 100% get that. How do you talk to people who may have, again, I go back to, I call it the old school way of how I grew up.
Yep. Yep.
You went to church, you went to two services, you did
Yep.
this, you did that. My mom was like the armor bearer to the pastor. So when I say we was in the building every day,
Yep.
7 days a week,
Yep.
sometimes twice a day, that's what I mean. And a lot of people in experiencing that have experienced what people call now church hurt.
Church.
How do you deal with, or how do you counsel someone? How do you talk to someone who may have experienced it? Because a lot of times in that church hurt, it pushes them further from God, and the goal is to push people towards Him.
Right. Several things. One, I experienced it, and I'm gonna be honest, I experienced more quote unquote church hurt as a shepherd than as a sheep. Because sheep have teeth, and some of these sheep have grills. They just, they're just smiling at you, right? And it bites and it hurts. The reality is, and I think you can speak to this as a PK, pastors deal, if you call the shots, you take the shots. So pastors and their families get several things happen. One, get taken advantage of often because people will use their kindness for weakness. Many pastors, and again, you see online this, even looking at the little thing the guy did the other day, little Drewski and others and
I was
whatever.
gonna ask you about that.
Right.
We get to that too.
Oh yeah, let's talk about it. So you see stuff like that makes it seem like pastors are misusing and doing something wrong and malfeasance, and that's an unfortunate narrative because you literally can have crooks sitting in some of the highest offices of the land and say nothing about that, and it's like documented, it's in front of your face. But they want to look at some of these other things that there's really no factual basis to often support a lot of that. And so that being said, I think what happens for many people is there is this belief that church hurt me, so God hurt me. And the reality is, you got hurt in a car accident, you didn't stop driving. Somebody on your job lied on you, you didn't stop working. Somebody in your family consistently does you dirty, and you still gonna be at that cookout with them red Solo cups having your barbecue. So at the end of the day, things happen. People hurt people. The church doesn't hurt people. And so number one is the realization of what actually hurt you. It was that person that did that, not this institution, nor was it God. And I know there's some deeper issues with that because some things do sometimes seem like they've been institutionally done to people. And I realize those are unique circumstances in many instances, but those are still people that are doing that. That's not God. That's number one. Number two, as I mentioned, I've been through it. I remember going through something. I'm an associate pastor at a church, went through the experience where the pastor was wanting to shut the church down. I was brought in for a turnaround. We turned it around. Like literally, we had amazing growth and me coming in and doing what I was supposed to do. Many lives changed. He didn't want to continue. They were concerned that I wanted to, essentially try to take the body that was left and start a church. I'm like, I don't want to start no church. That's the last thing I want to do. That turned into one of the most messy experiences I've ever went through. And things were said that I was like, you gotta be joking. And I literally said during that time, Lord, if this is how your people are, I don't know how real I can be on your show.
You can be real. You can be real here.
I said, Lord, if this is how your people are, they can go to hell. I said, somebody going to hell, and I got a list right here. I got a list. I got a list of what they done. Because it blew my mind
right.
How people would act that way. I looked through all my years of ministry. If I got something, again, I was in business and ministry simultaneously, so I was doing very well as a young person. And so, there was talk about that, I just had to realize, you know what, that's people. People are going to be people, and they're going to be people everywhere. And so when I'm speaking to people, one, God didn't do this, people did this. Number two, use this as an opportunity to strengthen your relationship with God, not to run from God. And then number three, even when it comes to church, it's mess because people are a mess.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Just like your job is a mess, just like your family's a mess, just like your spouse is a mess, your kids are a mess. Like mess comes with people, and you don't cancel just because of conflict. You don't cut off just because of conflict. And ultimately, depending on what the scenario is, I ultimately go to this place. You have to ask yourself, were you performing for God, or do you really love him? Because if you really love him, you have to at some point be able to separate his people from him and realize, God, I love you. These people are yours. I know they got issues, but guess what? So do I. I have some issues too. I got some things I can work on too. And I think if you step back and approach it like that, it makes it so that it's a subject that people can broach. I don't deny that some real things have happened to people, some real injustices and some real bad things have happened. And in the name of God, I don't deny that. But at the same time, just because it was done in his name doesn't mean that he did it.
100%. Now let's get into this Drewski.
Let's go.
Drewski, if you for those who are listening, is I know if he's a comedian, he's more like a social media presence and he does comic comedic things sometimes. So I don't know if he's a full-fledged comedian, but he went and made a video that caused a lot of controversy. Pastors were preaching against it in churches, like that
Right.
following that Sunday. It was just a
Right.
mess. But in my personal opinion, it did shed a light on some of the things that are happening when it comes to pastors and preachers and things that they're doing in their church, which may or may not be necessarily a good thing. And so, what was your thoughts around that?
Well, in all honesty, I only saw clips, highlights, responses. I didn't
Okay.
personally see the whole video because once I saw that, me personally, I just had a distaste for it. I had a distaste for it because the statistics tell a very different story.
Mm-hmm.
Out of the 350 or so thousand churches in America, most of them are 100 people or less. That's number one. Number two, most pastors are bivocational, where they, in addition to ministry, they have a separate job. The stress that a pastor is under is immense. Most pastors are not just asked to preach. Most pastors are surrogate father,
Mm-hmm.
counselor, lawyer, doctor, big brother, big sister, like all of these things, therapist, all of these things into one. And there's this expectation from many people that when I need you, you got to be there. And if you're not there one time, and the Lord shifted me. I'm going somewhere else. Whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just the reality of it. So, and out of least respected professions, pastor often is within the top three of the least perfected respected professions. Pastors, lawyers, and doctors have the highest occurrences of drug abuse, alcoholism, and suicide. All three of those roles are roles that use their lives, skills, talents to help other people. So I looked at that and I was just like, that's unfortunate that you're picking a few outliers that you seem to think simply because they are doing certain things that means they're stealing. So first of all, I had an issue with the top level. Just because people are doing well doesn't mean they're stealing.
Right.
I mean, y'all didn't do a video about Elon Musk. Where's the Elon Musk video? This is billions. You're talking about chump change compared to this. You didn't do a video about Peter Thiel. You didn't do a video about whatever billionaire Jeff Bezos. And my point is that why would there be a presumption of irregularity that a pastor's stealing if they happen to be flashy with how they live or flashy with what they do? Is that their personal taste? Sure. Do some people like it? Sure. Do some people not? Sure. But that's America. You can have your own taste. So I didn't like that. Number one. Number two, I didn't like the issue because the data just doesn't support that. That's the masses.
Right.
And that's the majority. And then number three, I think of it like this: like, just because you don't like something doesn't mean that something's wrong with it. You can't demonize something just because it's different than what you like, or it's different than what you want to engage in, or different than what you want to receive. So when I saw the responses, when I saw little clips that I did see, I was like, that's unfortunate, because that's just not the reality for most churches. That's not the reality for most pastors. As a bishop who interacts with many pastors from a variety of backgrounds, most pastors want to see, they care more about their people than their people would ever care about them. They care more about helping them than their people would ever care about reciprocating that. And that's just a fact. So, I didn't like what I saw, and I was like, I don't need to see the rest because that's going to infuriate me. And I'm depending on the day, you get a little Malcolm out of me or a little Martin out of me, and then some days you get both of them. So that might have sent me to by any means necessary.
Right.
I
Right.
have to
Right.
watch the whole thing. You got to protect your spirit sometimes.
I love that you said that. My question to you, because you do use social media as a tool, a lot of people, again, if you had to compare it, especially from growing up in the church, and I'm sure like you've grown up too, a lot of people have this disdain for the use of social media, that social media should be separate. But a lot of people, what people don't realize is that people don't watch the news as much. People don't do these traditional forms of information. And
Right.
so you got to go where the people are, and the
Right.
people are on their phones. We have the data that proves that people are on their phone. We have the data that proves that they get the information from their phone. So how do you um talk to, or when people have these issues with people like pastors and preachers that use social media as a tool?
I'll be honest. So I was because I came from the traditional background of media. So I did a lot of traditional TV. For those who've been around the Christian world for a while, TBN and
TBN.
Daystar, and
Mm-hmm.
the different work, the different networks. So I would do that. I hosted those programs all the time. In fact, the one as I look away, I did the last show on one of the TBN networks before they closed the studio in Atlanta, Georgia. So I was used to that. So I had initially, to be honest with you, even though we had great success with social media, I had a little bit of resistance. I was like, I'm a real pastor. I ain't got time to be on social media. And I was like, I ain't got time to be doing all that. He said, these pastors got time to be doing these videos because they're not running an organization and running an operation. I got all that. And then it was a very simple thing to what you just said. This is where people are. So it would be foolish of me to not go to where people are when it is the easiest way to reach people. And so I understand those who might criticize and say you shouldn't do it. I'm like, well, I mean, I just think that's just somebody living under a rock. I mean, that's like tell everybody else that. Like, don't create this separate thing where you're a pastor, you're a church, you shouldn't be doing that. Based on what? Do you have a that up? Do you have a verse to back that up? Do you have a principle to back that up? I think the reality is if Jesus was walking the earth today, he would be utilizing all of the technology, all of the things that we use. And I think it's a good thing. So to people who have an issue with it, I say, well, again, I'm a believer in this. Live and let live. You can have whatever limiting belief you want to have. Just mind your business and stay out of mind. So, if you think, well, he shouldn't be doing all them videos. And, I talk a lot about my fitness journey. So I've lost over 120 pounds. It inspires a lot of pastors, a lot of people. A lot of people in our congregation have lost 100 pounds, 150 pounds, like they've gotten their health together, went from being diabetic to no longer having issues like that. And so, I heard one person say, you do these videos with your tank top on, and you said, it's too sexual. I said, well, if you went to sex from a tank top, that's an issue you need to deal with.
Yeah.
So, have a good day. And while I record my video with my tank top on, like I'm not. I learned a long time ago, if you live for the applause of people, you will die from their silence. And so, to those who say that, I say, I understand your point of view, and you get to have your point of view. That has nothing to do with me. Who I need to reach is not watching these traditional, types of media. Who I need to reach is not engaging in that, but they are engaging in these other things. And so I'm able to bring hope and bring the gospel and bring good news to a variety of different platforms. And that's not something that one opinion or two or 200 opinions or 2,000 opinions is going to stop me from doing.
My next question is, on this podcast, I talk about mental health and wellness, and we know that mental health is something that once everybody should be invested in. They should be
Yes.
invested in how their mind is, and when something is wrong, what to do with those types of things. And you mentioned how sometimes as a pastor, or a preacher, a bishop, you sometimes a therapist.
Mm-hmm.
What is your mindset on therapy and mental health
Yes.
and wellness? Because to me, it's a huge part of what I do. And a larger part too is because I grew up in a church where you pray, but you don't go see a therapist,
Yes.
because God got it. God, if you believe, then you should be healed, and you shouldn't
Mhm.
need medication. You shouldn't need all these different things. What's your thought process on that?
I am pro therapy, pro counseling, pro coaching, pro all of anything that will help bring therapy. So let's look at it. What is therapy? Therapy in its root form means healing. So Exodus 15:26, I am the Lord, your healer. So God will use a variety of things to bring healing, but he's ultimately the healer. So he'll use a therapist, he'll use a message, he'll use a conversation, he'll use a video, but he's ultimately the healer, but he's using these different conduits, these different things as a way to bring that healing. I am pro all of those things, which is, I didn't realize how much of an anomaly that was to be that way
Yes,
until people kept
it's
asking me
refreshing to
questions.
hear.
Right. Until people kept asking me questions like that. And I was like, pastors are still saying that? Like, people are still saying that? I was
Yes.
like, I don't understand it. Because at the end of the day, it doesn't take away from your spirituality to have to be practical about the things that you need healing for, the things that you need therapy for and through. There's a scripture that talks about there are these 10 lepers, and Jesus sends them on the way. He says, go to the church. The Bible says, and as they went, they were healed. Healing is a journey. It's not often an event. It's a series of events that lead to revelation that often causes a person to go from inside out and do the work. So I'm a believer in that. And so for me, to those that say, well, I don't believe in all that, again, my posture is this: you get to have whatever limiting thoughts you want to have. So if you don't believe in it, good. Sit over there and struggle with yourself. Sit over there and deal with your issues. Sit over there and be mad all day, be bitter, be whatever. But I'm a believer in that. And I think therapy comes through many forms. One is what you mentioned, very formal, practical forms of therapy, talking to someone that doesn't have a dog in the fight. I think that's really important, because often if you're talking to your friends, they have an interest, they have a slant. They have a bias. He's someone that can be unbiased, that can hear the facts, that can walk you through it, give you tools, give you strategies, and show you how to do the work. So I am very pro that. I encourage people to do that. I still do that in a one-on-one session. As full as my schedule is, I still do it. And then if there's stuff that, like, I'm unable to do, we point to the right persons on our team, or we will refer them out. And I'm a big believer in that. And let's go deeper, because you mentioned mental health as an overall. Some things aren't necessarily, just therapeutic. Some things might be psychiatric, and they're going to need additional levels of specialized professionals. It is what it is. That doesn't mean that you don't believe enough.
Right.
No,
Your
like,
faith is small
or
because
you're
you needed to go see a psychiatrist. You may need that
exactly.
and your faith, because there
Bro,
are faith-based psychiatrists, there are faith-based therapists, but because sometimes we're so, like you said, muddied in the water where we just think it's only one way, or that's it, and it's not.
right, right. And I also understand too where some of that thinking comes from, where in times where God was all you had,
Mm-hmm.
there was no a therapist. What is that? There
What's
was
that?
no
Right.
counselor. It was not that. But as time evolves, even Jesus says this: greater works will we do than he did. And so as time has evolved, there's all of these other things that are made available. That's like having, that's like your arm is in throbbing pain, and you said, I'm not taking no Tylenol, I'm not taking no Advil or whatever. I'm just praying over it. Well, okay, well, your arm's going to be hurting. So just deal with your hurting arm then. At the
Right.
end of the day, God makes these things available for us. And I think it'd be foolish not to use them, not to take advantage of them. And I think people only do that many times because there is a fear of somebody else, especially culturally, being in your business. I don't want
Yes.
anybody knowing my business. Well, first of all,
Mhm.
ain't nobody studying your business. That is
And
a
your business is coming out and how you interact with other people anyway. They just can't put their finger on what it is, but they're interacting with your business every day.
yes, your business and your baggage are right there, right?
Mhm.
And so to me, there's this belief. I don't want other people in my business. I don't want people doing that. And I think the reality is some of that is cultural. What happens in our house
Stays in our
stays
house.
in our house. That mentality can again come to your individual life. What's going on in me? And then you see people have these breakdowns, have these issues, have these challenges, or as you said, it's showing up in how you're interacting with people. So to your question, I am very pro people getting whatever help they need. And it does not make you weak to need help. It does not make you a weak Christian, a weak man, a weak woman to need help. In fact, every person that ever became great had somebody help them.
I love that.
Yeah.
I want to ask you two things. How do you take care of yourself in general? You said you lost, a lot of weight. You're in your health journey, you're making sure that you're staying active. What are some of the other ways in which you take care of yourself? Because a lot of, especially Black men, don't have that a
So true.
regimen or something that they do that kind of helps alleviate stress that you guys are all under.
Oh yeah, I'm so glad you said that, because I'm a big proponent of that. So I'm a big proponent in, obviously, I won't say obviously, but number one, the basics. So I believe in using my benefits. So I believe in and taking care of my health. If there's anything I want to test this, I'm in 1 year. I just went through all my benefits. I said, I'm paying for all of this. I said, run all of these
None of
tests.
it. Right.
I said, run all these. Oh, sir, you don't need that. I said, run the test. I said, did I pay for it? Run the test. I was doing ideology tests. I would
Every
do it
day.
every kind of. I said, run every test possible. I said, because I don't like this approach to health where we'll do something if we see a problem. That's a problem. So let's be preventative in that way. So there's that from a physical health standpoint. Exercise, extremely important to me. I used to hate going to the gym. I used to hate working out. Like the smell of a gym was disgusting to me. You know, you go in the gym, you see the guys, head, shoulders, knees, and toes.
Right.
I was like, I don't want that. I want to keep my neck. I'm a public speaker. I need my neck. Right. But I literally, this is no joke. I prayed and said, God, you have to give me a desire to go to the gym because it's not something that I desire to do. He did,
Right.
and it's part of my therapy. And again, many things are therapeutic. It's part of my therapy. So not missing isn't just about the fitness aspect. Not missing is that this is healing me. This is helping me to get out some of those frustration and anger, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, helping me to get it out in a constructive way. I believe in quality conversations. So I keep a tight circle around me where they can see me as both Clark Kent and Superman. Because I think you need people who can see you as both and respect you as both. Most people are never vulnerable because when they reveal their vulnerabilities to people, people weaponize that against them, especially men.
Mm-hmm.
So I ain't telling nobody nothing, right?
Right.
But then the problem is you're dealing with all that stuff internally, and then eventually you have some type of internal breakdown where I believe the body keeps count. And so then your body begins to break down because you've held all that in, or then you have some type of external breakdown. And so that's important. The list goes on, making sure that I take time for me to do what I like to do. When so much of your life is on a schedule and on demand for other people, I said, well, when am I going to enjoy me? So I had to actually take time to say, this is what I like to do. This is what I'm doing. This is what I like to do. This is what I'm doing. One of the biggest things that I did, simple stuff, was I put my phone on D&D. My phone stays on
Mm.
perpetual D&D. And I know that there's a few people. My mother doesn't like it. I'm unmarried, so and when dating. Ladies may not like that or what have you, but here's the thing. That is what that is. So I'll see you called. I'm gonna call you right back, or what have you, because I do not have certain family members. I'll see you call. I'll call you right back, because for me, all of the alerts,
Or
all the
too much.
messages, it's a
Right.
lot. So then what happens is I never get to live my life because I'm responding to somebody's demand on me.
Mm.
And so that was one of the biggest things that I was able to do. And I'll just give one other that was really important is the way my schedule works. Since I was 12, when I started my first business and got into ministry, I've had one setting, which is on. I don't know another setting. So when people are like, oh, I just laid around the house all day. You did what?
Right. What does
I
that
don't
look like?
what how do you do it? What tell me about that? Like to me, that's like speaking a foreign language.
Right.
I don't even understand that. And one of the things I began to do is have my schedule built so that at a certain time, my schedule just used to be all day. Now, at a certain time, it's done. So if it didn't get done by this time, it's going to get done tomorrow because it's not happening today because I'm done today.
That is super. Listen, I can see why they call you the people's bishop. I can see that. I see why.
I love it.
Um, uh, lastly, I just want to give you the opportunity to share whatever you feel God has placed on your heart to give to people, because again, we know that in the listening of the podcast, people. I always say, and I always say this when I'm talking to people, even on the podcast. I said it's not a mistake that you're tuning in today.
Yeah,
It's
no,
not it's a mistake. Whatever you needed for today is here for you today. So,
yeah.
what is it that you would like to let the people know?
I love that. One, I said this to you before we started, but I want to say this to you again. Thank you for what you're doing to create these conversations because conversations are catalysts for transformation. You never know how one seemingly small thing is everything that somebody needed to hear. So thank you for what you do. People see you do it, they hear you do it, and just think, oh, anybody could do that. It is not as easy as she's
No.
making it look. She's making it look easy because she's
Thank
good
you.
at it. My pleasure. But it's not as easy as that. And when I say to anybody listening, is here's the message: you still have a pulse, so God still has a plan. And you're not done. Your greatest isn't behind you. It's here and it's ahead of you. You haven't met everybody that's going to love you. You haven't done everything you're going to do. You haven't closed every deal you're going to close. You haven't owned every piece of property or a home or car or automobile or asset. Your life's not over. Your story's still being written. And the best chapters are here and ahead of you. And I say that because I think for many people, when there's moments that we all face of despair and hopelessness and it's over and what am I going to do? And the best is behind me, is that you need to know that if it was over, you could have been out of here already. It's not over, which is why you still have a pulse. So he still has a plan.
I love that. So thank you so much for being a part of our conversation today. Like I said, my little church heart is just in another level. I just love listening to people who bring in God and allow good common sense and just learning to apply. A lot of people don't know how to apply God's word. You can ask somebody any day on Sunday, what did the pastor say? They may be able to regurgitate what the pastor may have said, but they don't know how to apply it. And that's just something that I've always been focused on, even when I was younger. Like, well, how are we applying this to our actual daily lives? How can we apply it? And so I love the
and I gotta say one thing too, because I believe wherever I go, I want to sow. For your audience, we want to sow into them. We got tons of books and resources and things that are available, things from how to break generational curses, how to get your money together, making money moves. My first book that I wrote after building a very successful business by 21. It was Denver's largest Black-owned mortgage company. And then watching that entire industry collapse, I said, God, if you get me through this, I will teach everybody else how I got through it. So we want to sow into your audience. And so if they text the word Bishop, BISHOP, to the phone number 55498. We want to give them a discount on everything that's in our store, just to let them know that we appreciate them. We appreciate you. And it's a part of the way I live life. I think anywhere we go, there's something we're supposed to sow. And when you have that mentality, it's an abundance mentality. So everywhere you look, there's increase, because I always got seed in the ground. So we want to do that. And of course, people connect at bishopforeman.com. You can find out more about the church. You can find out more about messages, all the different things that we do to make available to add value to the lives of people. That's the whole name of the game for me. Anybody that connects with me, you're going to know you're connected, because your life is going to improve.
And for those who are listening and you're active, you're like in the middle of a workout, you're doing whatever you're doing, just keep in mind that I always put all this information in the show notes so that you don't have to remember. Click, click, click. I make everything clickable. And that way because we know we're clickable people. So we're going to make sure you can click on all the things. And I just appreciate this conversation.
Thank you so much for having me. And to your audience, listen, it's going to be your best year yet.
No, that's all right.
Yes, indeed.
All right. What did you think? Honestly, I thought the conversation was a beautiful conversation. And I think God's timing is, first of all, I don't have to think. I know God's timing is perfect, because if I would have had this conversation a few years ago, I would have come in with the attitude of, again, church hurt. Like, oh, I'm over it. I don't want to hear about no pastors. I don't want to talk. But I'm not at that place. I'm at a place, again, of healing. And when you're at a place of healing, you hear things differently. Your ears are able to hear, you're able to receive. And sometimes we have to be honest, where a lot of people can't receive from God because they're still hurt from the things that they believe God allowed to have happen. But sometimes we have to remember that it's unfortunate that hurt people. And that's definitely, how I roll around here. That's definitely not an excuse, not something that I just throw around willy-nilly, but it is the truth. And because of that, I'm at a place that God could send somebody like Bishop Foreman into my space, and for me to have a conversation that is met with clarity, a conversation that is met with beauty. I don't know. So I'm grateful for this conversation. I am happy to hear and be a part of it. And yeah, is extremely exciting. Also, this is the week of Lent. Now, again, I know that a lot of people may not be Catholic, may not practice Catholicism and all those things. But one thing that I always do try to do is to find something that I am giving up in this season. And the reason why is because we should all give up something. There should be something that we're just like, you know what? I am no longer in need of this. I'm trying to work through something a little differently. And so I'm going to take away whatever distraction. And so if that is you, and even if you don't do it formally, I do invite you to try to do it. It's not always easy, because like one year I gave up alcohol, and I know that's not like, oh my God, you gave up alcohol, but to give yourself up to something for 40 days, if you take 30 days, it only takes it to be something that you do often. It becomes no longer like a thing. It's not a chore. It's not a heartache. There's been times when I've done that. What you choose to give up is your own. You don't have to make no church announcement about it. Sometimes I've given up like how I respond to things. Like, I'm going to take the time to respond a little bit more calmly to whatever is going on. And so I'm not going to overreact. Like, it could be anything. You don't have to think of like a thing. It doesn't have to be like, I'm going to give up my favorite dessert. I'm going to give up desserts altogether. Whatever you're choosing to give up, I am encouraging you to find a way to do it. Because again, it's almost like, how I look at it sometimes, it can also almost be like a fast, where you're like, I'm going to refrain from certain things. I'm going to clear my mind of certain things. And I'm going to be honest, a lot of us, we could use a couple clearings. So again, we are in the spirit of Lent right now. If you're feeling compelled, go ahead and give up something. Again, I'm not telling you to make a church announcement. I'm not one of those ones who makes an announcement. Usually I may go talk about it after a while, like I may talk about it after the fact, but I'm just encouraging you to do so. Again, is it something that's mandatory? No. What is mandatory that I always encourage you to do is to, one, find something that you love and do just that. Too many of us are not walking and doing things that we love. We're doing everything possible to just simply exist. But I want us to get to the point where we actually find the things that make us feel good, that make us joyful, that brings joy into your world. It could be something that you enjoy doing. It could be simple as, I love to paint and I haven't given myself to painting in such a long time. Take the time to do that. And this means something outside of your stage, your age, your everything. Go ahead and do one thing this weekend that really does fill your cup, because you are deserving of that. Too many of us, again, are doing everything in our power to go around and around the mulberry bush, and ain't nobody doing something that they love. And so you just simply going through life and letting life do you. No. Tap into the things that you love. There's something on your heart that you could be doing, that you've been wanting to do forever and a day. Go ahead and do it. Go ahead and get it done. With that being said, I wish you nothing but the best of all the things. I will be back with you next week as we talk about all the things. I should hopefully have my book. I'm reading Baldwin, a love story about James Baldwin. Just some of the things he had going on in his life, which y'all may not agree with. And this ain't about agreement. This is about his life. Like, folks has already lived it. I'm reading about it. I want somebody in the future to read about my life and say, you know what, that was a beautiful person. I loved everything that she has done. That is always the goal. With that being said, have a great day, have a great week, and we will be back with more Conversations with Toi.
Thank you as always for joining me. And I know that even in the deepest or joyful conversations, that there's something we can learn and apply. Until next time, I hope that you are doing better. If not, we will be back to talk some more and handle it. Peace to you and yours. Stay grounded.